What is up people, it's Seja here, and in this video I'm going to show you how to build a video conferencing app with Django and Zegocloud. Now this is going to be so easy that it's not going to take more than 20 minutes to do this, like literally build a video conferencing app from scratch. And this is also a very basic project, so if you're a beginner, this is the perfect thing for you. And this is also going to add a lot of weight to your resume because hey, it's not going to take much time to implement, so you might as well just create it and add it to your resume. And you can even use it for your personal usage. You can literally build this app and use it for video conferencing for with your friends, business, whatever it is. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so since we're doing this with Django, the first thing to do would be to actually install Django. And first of all, I will create a new Python virtual environment to work with my project. So I'll say python-m venv and I'll name it as py3. There you go. So if I say ls now, you can see there's a new directory that is named as py3. In order to activate it, just go to py3 scripts/activate, and now I have activated my newly created Python virtual environment, and I will be working inside this environment throughout my project. Great. So the next thing is to install Django. So I'll say pip install Django, a simple command to install Django. So once Django is installed, I'll go ahead and create a new Django project. So I'll say Django admin start project, followed by the name of my project, which would be video conferencing, something like that. So the next step would be to create a new app. So I'll go ahead and say Django admin start app, and then I'll name my app as video conference underscore app. And that should create a new folder with the name of my app. All right, so now that we have created a new app, we have to add it to our project. So you can go to your settings.py here, and inside here, you will find a list called installed apps. So you just have to kind of add your app in here. The name of my app would be video conference underscore app. That's the name of my app. So I have added it. And once you do that, you can just open your terminal up, and you can kind of like start this server up to see if your app is successfully added to your project or not. So you just say python manage.py run server, and if you see no errors here, that means you have successfully created your first Django project and also created a first Django app. So the development server is by default at localhost port 8000. So if I just click on it, it's going to open it up in my web browser. I'm gonna bring it right here. There you go. So it says the install worked successfully. Congratulations. Awesome. So the first thing that our video conferencing app would require is the ability for users to create an account and log into their accounts, just like any other web app, right? So we'll go ahead and create that first. So in order to do that, we need to actually create the front end where the users would be able to interact with our web app. So let me go ahead and do that. So I'll go to my video conference underscore app folder, and inside here, I'll create a new folder that says templates. So inside this folder, I plan on writing all my HTML files. So I'll create a new file here, and I'll say, I'll start with register.html, and let me go ahead and create a simple registration form here. I have my GitHub Copilot turned on, so that's why it is so easy to write HTML. Copilot is kind enough to generate a basic registration form like this. So you might also notice some weird syntax inside this HTML file, and that is because you are actually allowed to write Python code inside your HTML templates, because Django is going to render it when you use the render function, which we will do in some time. So I'll go to my views.py here, and this is where I can define my views. The first view that I'll create is for register, sorry, and I'll create a new view for that, and I'll return render of request, comma, and I'll render the register HTML file that I've just created. So I also need to configure my URLs. So I'll create a new file called urls.py under my apps directory, and over here I'll import django.urls path, and I'll also import my views.py here. All right, now I get to define some URL patterns here. And the first URL pattern that I'd like to define here is for my register, which I would like to link with my register view that I've just created. So I'll just say views.register, and the name I'll just give it as register. Perfect. So now I have to link the urls.py inside my apps directory to the urls.py in the actual project directory, which is under my projects folder. So if I go to urls.py under my projects folder, there's another urls.py here. This is auto-generated by Django. So over here, all I have to do is just include my other urls.py, which is pretty easy to do. You first import include here and then say path, and then just include urls.py that is inside your apps directory. Perfect. So that should be it. So let me go ahead and start the server now. So I'll open my browser and go to 127.8,000/login, and oops, we got an error. It says Django tried these URL patterns, but it is not able to find it. Oh, that's actually /register, not login, because we didn't yet define login yet. So if I go to register, we still got another error. All right, so reverse for login not found. I think I messed it up somewhere. So I think the issue is inside the template, inside the HTML file that we have written. So GitHub Copilot generated this, as you saw. So it by default, put the href for the anchor tag to the login URL, which is not yet defined, and that's why it gave us an error. So for now, I'll just remove that and replace it with a hash, and that error should be fixed now. If I refresh it, there you go. That is a very simple, not very clean looking registration form. But the way it looks like this is because we have not added any CSS yet. So I'm gonna go ahead and add some CSS to make it look lot better. Now, I am not going to teach you how to write CSS, because honestly, I am not the right person to be teaching you to write CSS, because I kind of suck at it. So what I did is I browsed through some templates. I imported code that is written by other people, the CSS code I mean, and then I've imported it to my project. So I'm just gonna copy all the CSS that I have here. Let me go ahead. I'll create a new folder here, call it static. And inside the static, I'll create a CSS folder, and inside this, I'll create a style.css, and I'm gonna just copy paste all the CSS. And by the way, I'll link the original resource from where I copied this CSS script in the description below. And I'll also go ahead and change this register.html, paste this, and let's go ahead and check it out now to see if it's any better. The same error, I'm gonna replace, and I will refresh this, and there you go. That looks a lot better than the previous version that we had. So that's a sign up page, and similarly I have the login page with me here as well, and I have to define a view for this. I'll go back to my views, def login, and I'll render login.html, and I'll go back to my urls.py and define the path for my login, views.login. I'll give the name as login as well. And now, since we have defined the login page, I can come back to my register.html, and for this href, I can define the URL as login, and that should work now. So I'm gonna go back, click on refresh that. So if I click on sign in here, it takes me to the sign in page, which is at /login. And if I click on sign up here, it's going to take me to /register. Awesome. So now we have ourselves the sign up and the sign in page. So let's go ahead and actually implement the backend for this. Let's implement the authentication feature in our web app so that users will be able to create their account and also log in to our web app. So in order to create the registration feature where users can actually create a new account on our web app, we'll be making use of Django's default user creation form. And in order to do that, I'll first create a new file called forms.py. And inside here, I'll make all the necessary inputs, and I'll create a new form called registration or register form, which extends or inherits from the user creation form, which is a default form of Django. So this user creation form has 3 fields. It has the username, the password 1, and password 2. So it's basically a basic form, in order to create new users on the website and also authenticate them with their username and password. But over here, we have additional fields to consider. If you look at our sign up page, you can see there's a first name, last name, email, and create password and confirm password, which is basically going to be password 1 and password 2. Now, in order to implement or include this, I'll first say email equal to forms.email field. And I'll set this to required because an email is required. It's going to act as our unique identifier for each user. And then I'll do the same for first name. I'll also set that to required. And similarly, I'll do that for the last name as well. And I'll need to define a meta class to define what fields we are expecting in our registration form. So the model that we're going to use is going to be the user model, because that is where all the details about our site users will be saved in the database. So, and then the fields that we are looking for would be the first name, and then the last name, the email, and password 1 and password 2. Now, for the user creation form, we also need a username attribute that is mandatory, but in our case, we do not have a username, if you can see, because our username is just going to be the email address. So we're going to define that as well so that we don't run into any issues later. So in order to do that, I'll have to override the save function. So I'll create a new save function here. I'll say commit equal to true. And first of all, I'll call the original save function of the user creation form. So I'll say user is equal to super register. And then if you can notice, I'm also setting the commit to false, which means I'm not actually committing the changes to the database yet, because we have some additional fields that we have to consider before committing the changes to the database. So in order to do that, I'll say user.email is equal to self.cleanData email, which is the value that we're getting from the form, from the register form or the sign up form. And then we also have the user.username, which is nothing but, which is a mandatory field, and in our case we are just going to set that to our email address again, because that's just going to be our username as well. And then we'll similarly define the first name by taking in the form value of the first name, and then user.last name, I'll take the last name value and then define it or assign it to user.last name. And that's it. Now that we have all the fields that are required, I'm just going to go ahead and commit this. I'll say user.save, which is going to commit the changes, and I will return the users. And here I'll write a new condition that says if request.method equal to post. Then I'll go ahead and create a form variable by passing in the request.post data to my register form that I've just created. And then I'll check if the form is valid. And if it is, I'll just save that form. And once I do that, I'll just go ahead and render the login page this time, and I'll send a success message that says registration successful, please log in. But if the form is not valid, I'll first catch the error message saying form.errors.as text, and then I will render the register.html template by passing in the error message as the context. So that should be it. So if I now go ahead, we got an error that says, oh, it looks like we misspelled required. Let me go ahead and fix that. There you go. So now if I go ahead, I'll try to log in with a new account here. Click on sign up. We got an error. It says no such table auth_user. So I think the issue for this is that we need to make migrations so that the changes that we have just defined would be applied to our database. So I'll say Python manage.py make migrations followed by the name of our app, which is going to be video conference underscore app. Python manage.py migrate. There you go. All the changes are now applied. So now I'll go ahead and run the server and let's resend the data here. And there you go. It says registration successful, please log in. Awesome. So the registration feature is done. Let's go ahead and code the login feature now, which is actually very easy to do. In order to authenticate the user in Django, you can just make use of the inbuilt login function. So I'll come back to my views.py and in my login, and I'll actually change the name of my view to login underscore view because I do not want it to override the default login function of Django. So I'll just rename it to login view, and I'll also have to change that in my urls.py as well. There you go. Now I'm gonna check if the request method is post. I'm gonna go ahead and get the email first and then the password, and in order to authenticate it, I can just create a new user object and call the authenticate to check if the username and password are correct. So I'll import authenticate, login, and also logout. So if the credentials of the user is correct, then the user object is not going to be none. So if that is the case, we just log in the user by making use of the default login function, and then we will redirect the user to /dashboard. But if the credentials are not correct, then we'll just render a error message saying invalid credentials, please try again. Now before we go ahead and try this out, you have to notice here that we still haven't defined a page or a view for dashboard. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'll say def dashboard. And this view should only be accessible to users who are authenticated, which means to users who are actually logged in, because a dashboard cannot be opened if the user is not logged in, right? So I'll make use of the login required decorator. I'll first actually go ahead and import it, and now I can use it. So what this basically does is it only shows you the dashboard view only if the current user is authenticated. If not, it's just going to redirect the user to the login page. So inside here, I'll just go ahead and render the dashboard.html template, and that should be it. So I'm gonna go back, see if there are any errors. There are no errors. So in my login page, I'll go ahead and log in with my newly created account. Click on login. We got an error that says 404 not found, and that's because I forgot to define the dashboard in URL pattern. So I'll go ahead and do that. Dashboard. All right, so, and there you go. It is supposed to display our first name here, but it is not. And that is because I did not pass in a context variable here. So I'll say name as request.user.firstname. Refresh that. There you go. Now it displays our first name as well. So there are three options: new meeting, join meeting, and logout. So we'll first go ahead and code the new meeting, which is where the user will actually be able to create a new meeting and invite his friends to the meeting or to the video conference. So we're gonna use a service called Zegocloud to implement the video calling or the video conferencing feature in our web app. And this is an awesome service. It makes your life a lot easier because you can literally import the video calling functionality in your app in less than 20 lines of code, literally. So this is awesome. And you can see that other than video call, there are a lot of other features or other products they offer, like voice call, also have live streaming, virtual avatar, AI, FX, in-app chat, etc., etc. So you can implement or integrate any of these features in your app with the least amount of effort possible. So let me show you how to actually implement or integrate Zegocloud's video calling utility in your app by making use of Zegocloud's UI kits, which makes your life even more easier because the UI is also pre-built by Zegocloud itself. You can just import that UI, that video call or the video conference UI to your app in order to be able to deploy your app much quicker. Now, obviously, if you want more functionality in your app, or if you want to have more control over the features that you are integrating from Zegocloud, you can go ahead and make use of their SDKs, which are available for all the operating systems: iOS, Android, web, Flutter, etc., etc. But if you're just looking to build a basic app, just like how we are trying to build a basic video conferencing app here, you can just go ahead and make use of their UI kits, which have pre-built or pre-written UI elements that you can just directly import into your app and start using right away. So let me go ahead and show you how to use this. So first of all, we obviously need an account on Zegocloud. So go ahead, create an account. Let me do that quickly. Oh, and also if you're wondering whether this costs you anything in order to use the features or the services that Zegocloud offers, let me tell you that you get 10,000 free minutes per month to use with any of Zegocloud's products. So in this case, since we're using the video calling or video conferencing service of Zegocloud, we get to use 10,000 free minutes per month without having to pay literally anything. And I honestly think 10,000 minutes per month is literally a lot more than you require if you do not plan on using your app for commercial purposes. So that's awesome. Let me go ahead and click on start free trial. This is how your dashboard is going to look like. And on your dashboard, you can right away see the amount of free minutes that you have left in your account. So first I'll go ahead and click on create a project, and I'll select voice and video call here. Click on next, and it shows you that there are two ways to get started. As I have already explained, UI kits is if you want to deploy things quicker, but if you want more control of your app, you can go ahead and make use of their SDK. So in this case, we'll be making use of UI kits. So I'll go ahead with UI kits. I will name my project as, I'll say, my video conference. Click on start with UI kits. Since I'm trying to integrate this on my web app, I'll select for web. And over here, you have some basic configuration that you can adjust for a one-on-one call and for the group call as well. For example, you can choose a layout for the group call if you want it to be automatic, or if you want it to be grid or sidebar. I like the grid better, so I'll just choose grid here. And you can also choose whether the user's microphone and camera should be enabled by default or not. I prefer not to do that, so I'll just simply turn them off and click on save and start to integrate. And it's going to show you a demo like this. So if you scroll down, there's a button that says get the config file and integrate. So just click on that. And then it shows you your app ID and your app secret. So you will be needing these two values in order to integrate the Zegocloud's video conference utility into your own web app. So you can copy these two values, or you can just simply click on download HTML file, and that's going to download your HTML file that contains the code for Zegocloud to run. And it also contains your app ID and your server secret. So let me go ahead and save this HTML file. And what I'll do is I will just copy that HTML file into my templates directory, and I'll just rename this as videocall.html. And let's go ahead and take a look at this HTML file. So it has some JavaScript that is required for Zegocloud to run, and it also has your app ID and your server secret hard-coded into it. So in order to render this page, we'll just go ahead and create a new view. So I'll go back to views.py. I will create a def video call view, and I'll also use the login required decorator here. And inside this, I'll just render videocall.html, and I'll also pass a context variable called name with the user's first name. And back in videocall.html, you can see that the username is being set to username followed by some randomly generated user ID. But we do not want that because we already have the full name of our user. So let's go ahead and change that. So what I'll do is I'll just say name here, which is the name of our context variable. And I also want the full name of the user to be displayed. So I'll just go back to my views.py, and I will add a space, and I'll also append the user's last name over here. So I'll go ahead and add it to my URL patterns. I'll call it as meeting. views dot video call, and I'll name it as meeting. So I'll come back to my dashboard.html, and for the new meeting button, this button over here, we have to link it to actually go to the meeting, to actually go to /meeting. So I'll just go ahead and change the href of this to meeting. Awesome. So let's see if we have any errors. We do not. So let's go ahead and test this out. If I click on new meeting, would you look at that? It is that easy to integrate the video conferencing service of Zegocloud into our web app with just some few lines of code. All right, so as you can see, by default, the microphone and the camera are turned off because that's what we have defined in the configuration. So I'm just gonna turn on my camera, click on allow here, and there you go. That's my webcam. You can also see the display name is automatically set to the user's first name plus last name. And you also have the personal link here using which users can actually join your room. So if I click on join, click on allow, and there you go. Awesome. That's my video calling utility. Right now, I'm the only one in the room, but if I want more people to join my room, I can just simply share this link to them and they'll be able to join my video conference. So finally, let's go ahead and code the logout view so that users will be able to log out. This is also very simple to do as well. I will just go to views.py here, create a new view called logout view, and I'll just log out the user and redirect him to the login page. And I'll make use of the login required decorator here as well. We'll go back to dashboard.html and and I'll set the href to logout. Also forgot to define this in URL patterns. Logout view. I'll name it as logout. And there's one more thing that's left to do, which is the join meeting feature. So if the user has a room ID, he can just put in the room ID and click on join meeting to be able to join the meeting. So let me go ahead and implement that as well. So I'll quickly create a new view called join room, and I will render the join room here. And now if I click on join meeting, I forgot to define it in the urls.py. Let me do that quickly. Join, say join room, say join, and in the dashboard.html, I'll define the view as join. All right, refresh the page, click on join meeting. Template doesn't exist. Okay, I think I misspelled it. There is no underscore here. Let's try that again. And now if I click on join meeting, that's going to take me to a screen like this where I can enter the room ID and click on join. So I'll write some logic here. To take in the room ID. And I'll simply just redirect the user to /meetings room ID equal to, and then I'll pass in the room ID here. Awesome. So now if I just go ahead and click on create a new meeting, and this is my room ID, which is 8576. So if I log in to another account here and click on join meeting, enter my room ID here, click on join, that's going to take me to my room. And there you go. Now there are 2 users. And if I want to log out, I can just click on log out, and that's going to just log me out and redirect me to the login page. So yeah, that'll be it for this video. If you like this, please do not forget to leave a thumbs up below, and also go ahead and check out Zegocloud. I'll leave the link in the description below. Go ahead and claim your 10,000 free minutes of video conferencing service. And you just saw how easy it is to integrate it into your web app and create a very basic, a very simple video conferencing app like this. If you want to read the code that I've written in this video, I'll leave the link to the GitHub repository in the description below, and I'll also leave the link to the HTML templates that I've imported. So go ahead and check it out if you're interested. So I'll see you in the next video. Until then, cheers.